Thank you very much. I'm happy to welcome one of our key strategic cybersecurity advisor to our discussion today on the session to talk about the cybersecurity challenges in the Indian banking and also the strategic approach we need to take. Very happy to welcome Mr. Paramalai Jayaraman, aka JPM, as he is very fondly called in the industry. Let me talk about his credentials, the vast experience he brings in this space. For over 30 years, Mr. Paramalai or JPM has been advising on the cybersecurity strategy and the cyber governance, particularly for the various Indian banking and financial services industry companies and also other industries as well. He brings in more 3 decades of experience in the information cybersecurity, risk management, and governance domain. Prior to this, he has been working with the Reserve Bank Information Technology Limited, which is an entity of RBI, and helping in the systems audit vertical and assisting the Reserve Bank of India in spearheading the risk-based supervision through security audits and incident analytics towards enhancing cyber resilience in the Indian banking sector. So a perfect gentleman to ask some of the questions about the challenges in the industry today. So welcome to the conversation, Mr. JPM.
Good afternoon, Mohan. It was my privilege to talk to you. Thank you for your nice introduction, and I'm humbled. Thank you.
Glad to have you here. Let me just straight away shoot some of the questions. And the first and foremost, let me put it to you. Right, in the last 2 years, obviously, we have all gone through a very turbulent time, and particularly in the banking industry, there has been profound change in the business models, how it is being operating, and a lot of digital transitions happening. So, in this context, would like to understand from you, what do you see as some of the key cyber security challenges facing the Indian banking system?
Yeah, thank you, Morgan. I think it's nice to note now, one side, the digitization is going up significantly. In India, the digitization was going up significantly higher, but COVID-19 further accelerated the digitization. So naturally, which means more and more digitization happening, naturally India and in particular banking sector becomes a good target for the cyber criminals. What I noticed is they are not going after some big sophisticated attack mechanisms. The basic cybersecurity hygiene mechanisms, simple like password, patch, basic measures what organizations are supposed to take, that's not being taken. That's leading into we are falling prey into the cybersecurity attacks. That's one part of the story. Second is the governance, as you told earlier, that plays a very vital role. Organization, when you talk about governance, the risk assessments, the top management support, periodic review by board and senior management team, those things playing a very vital role. The third, what I want to highlight, which is very important, similar to any other field in the digitalization, there's a huge supply demand on the cybersecurity talent. So that's also adding pressure for the banks in particular. So that's what broadly I would like to highlight.
Absolutely, very valid and very relevant, JPM. And having said that, like there are so many technology solutions in the market today, right? And so many partners engaging with customers, talking about the various solutions. But how does the customer go about in the banking industry to decide which technology to procure? How to safeguard their enterprise as such? Generally, is there a guideline that they need to look into?
Yeah, this is a wonderful question, and this is my favorite topic too. When it comes to the cyber security, it's quite unfortunate people thinking this is yet another technology, the overall cyber security itself. Unfortunately, that's not true. There are various means of technology deployed in the organization. It could be banking or any other sector, particularly banking, since the topic of relevance is banking. And those technologies, first of all, we need to understand those technologies deployed for the purpose of operationalizing the business processes. So what's happening today, to safeguard the operational processes and to safeguard the enterprise information assets, as you rightly called out, technologies, security technologies coming into play. So what's happening today, various technologies coming out in the security space. I can rattle down few just to get example. Like, for example, the IDS, intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention system, firewalls, web application firewalls, spam gateways, mail gateways. This is just, I would say, just 1 out of 100, I would say, whatever I told, right? So the list goes on and on. Unfortunately, what's happening today, when we go and find some technologies, some vulnerabilities, some issues which the organization need to mitigate, immediately they started deploying technologies. So there should be a systematic risk-based approach. And what is the risk organization facing? What is the mitigation factor? Which technology will help in mitigating the security risk, what they forecast, or what is the vulnerability they expect, and then deploy. And the solution starts now. Unfortunately, what's happening, people directly plug and play a technology, and it doesn't stop there. People forget it after that. I used to take an example of a Hero Honda, olden days, fill it, shut it, forget it. Technology doesn't work like that. The moment we buy a technology and implement, it starts from there. Similar to our human being, how we manage a body on day-to-day basis, that technology has to be managed on an ongoing basis, including change management, periodic review, periodic testing, auditing, and most important is the person who's deployed, do they have a competency? I talked about earlier cybersecurity talent. That's also one of the biggest problems. Today, does the people whomsoever managing the security on the ground in the banking sector, does the individual have a required competency? If not, are we outsourcing it? Are we enhancing the competency? All those aspects need to look at it. So it's just not pick and choose a technology. It encompasses the whole flavor of going through, like a software, what we talked about 9 yard, the whole flavor one has to review, carefully analyze, implement, and monitor and sustain.
Absolutely. And very well said, JPM, particularly like it's not something you can get off the shelf and implement and you say you're all done and good, right? And just to follow up on the same thing that you mentioned, JPM, there are also multiple flavors getting into this, and it's a moving thing, right? One, RBI keeps coming up with multiple new compliances, right, to which the banks have to keep improvising and come on board to. And even in spite of implementing some of the best-in-class products, the banks continue to face the attacks from the hackers and the criminals. So that has to be an ongoing activity, right?
Very true. Well said, Mohan. And the brilliant question yet again. I would like to start with an anecdote on this. First of all, compliance is not equal to security, right? That's the first part. Well, RBI might have issued a number of circulars, advisories, framework. If I can go back 10 years, Gopalakrishna committee report, which is something like 140 pages, encompassing various sets of best practices. Even today, it's being followed as a Bible by most of the banks. In addition to that, there are varieties of advisories, alerts being issued as a confidential manner by regulator to banks. It's accessible only to banks. Does it stop all these things? No. This is a common bare minimum requirement, common minimum denominator, right? So going back to the earlier word, compliance is not equal to security. In addition to this, organization expected to follow the IT Act from the local law of the land, and in future, personal data protection bill from privacy point of view, and if at all anything relevant to the European Act, GDPR as well. So there are various, all these things will help in only compliance and setting the baseline. But what organization missing is, on an ongoing basis, are we really monitoring it very periodically, continuously monitoring it? Like an earlier example of, it can't be just implementing a technology and forgetting it. It's an ongoing process. Just to take an example, in my personal opinion, again to underline, what I found is, whenever we talk about cybersecurity, people always take example of people, or rather triad of people, process, and technology. I also completely vouch for that, because some aspects are people, some aspects are process, some aspects are technology. But what is key is people, process, technology in that order. Unfortunately, what's happening? Technology after technology thrown, and wherever, if required, look at the process, and very rarely people aspects looked into. So what's happening because of this? To answer your question, we might have deployed best in the competent people, the efficient, robust processes, best of breed technologies, but if it is not continuously monitored, continuously improved, naturally the cyber criminals will continue to find loopholes. Quite most important challenge what's facing today in the banking sector is two things. One is the ransomware. Second is the phishing attack. So whatever sophisticated technology being deployed in the organization with robust processes and efficient people being there to continuously monitor, however big the organization is, the cyber criminal need only one entry. That one entry could be a simple phishing email, one unfortunate user who's sitting behind the terminal, clicking on that particular link and providing user ID and password, and that is being stolen by the criminal, and is sitting in the system for 1 week, 2 week, 1 month, 2 months, understanding the whole flavor of how does it work, and then moving laterally within the organization. At one fine day, he is attacking and either stealing the information or taking away the financial, sabotaging the finances systems or taking away the finances. So the most important is for all the technologies process being deployed, continuously monitoring and ensuring we are improving it. Just looking at the same thing from my NIST framework, which beautifully defines the standard, NIST stands for National Institute of Standards and Technology, which gives a complete framework: identify, prevent, detect, respond, and recover. Most important part is, while prevention is most of the technologies, processes, controls being placed, detect and recover or detect and respond is a place where banks need to be continuously focusing on. Again, throwing a technology such as SIEM or SOAR, those kind of buzzwords alone is not good enough. Continuous monitoring in the form of efficient processes will help in minimizing. So in a nutshell, it's not the question of when, it's a question of it's going to happen, how I'm going to respond. That's what the necessarily cyber resilience means. Attack bound to happen. So it's quite natural, every organization will get attacked. How quickly we detect and how fast we respond so that we can quickly recover and bring back the business is nothing but cyber resilience in my mind.
Thank you. JPM, and you saying cyber resilience, that's exactly what we position and the services we do for our customers, the banking customers, our cyber security, we call it a cyber security resilience services, right? From identifying to prevention and also responding to it, and how do we address it on an ongoing basis. And we see that in a day-to-day basis with our SOC NOC centers, how much of a threat we see with the banking industry and how we have to work on a vehement, rigorous way to prevent it and protect our customers' assets, right? And it is more acute today with the remote operations. Right? The last 2 years has made it a bit more vulnerable. And how the banks respond, how the customers respond to that is extremely critical. Right. So maybe let me ask you some tips on the whole cybersecurity governance. So if you can list down some tips for all of us, the customers, to note down, that would be extremely helpful.
Okay, great, Mohan. So when you talk about cybersecurity governance, while I'm not a politician to talk about more of governance, less of government. So in my mind, in the cybersecurity world, the governance plays a very, very vital role. So governance inclusive of risk assessments, security audit, and incident. I would say CISO have these three levers from a cybersecurity point of view. Of course, these three levers should be aligned with the business. So which means the first and foremost, the risk assessment is one of the key layers which needs to be focused on. This needs to be done. I would say when you talk about software development lifecycle, people talk about the security requirement need to be incorporated right at the develop or rather requirement specification stage. I would say when it comes to security, product conceptualization. When I say product, I'm talking about banking product conceptualization stage itself. Cybersecurity need to play a role for go, no-go decision. That's part number one. Part number two is the audit. So cybersecurity is all about very periodically doing testing, reviewing, auditing in the form of internal audit, external audit, red team assessments, vulnerability assessments, penetration testing. The list goes on. Application security scanning, network scanning. The list goes on and on and on. Varieties of service providers will be able to advise, including you, what you talked about with your own customers. The last but not the least is a cybersecurity incident response. As and when any incident happen, people should be able to respond instantly so that we are able to, our banks able to give the required confidence. When you talk about incident response, it's like I would say it's an art. Defining a process is very simple. Today, organization may be appointing a consulting and then or Google it, pull out a document called Security Incident Response Plan document, which can be there. But on an ongoing basis, continuously improving that is an art. It's a scientific process, but someone has to take a decision so that properly it is being continuously improved. This is my first step, which means 3 levers has to be concurrently used: risk assessment, audit, and incident response processes. The second one is very, very vital from a governance point of view: 3 layers of defense. The first layer being the business unit itself. So today, when we go to the business, they take care of the marketing, they take care of, when I say business in the banking parlance, I'm talking about the retail, mortgage, lending business, or treasury business, or banking customers handling, whatever we talk about, that's a line of business, right? So whenever we talk about line of business, they take care from all aspects of that, including quality, marketing, sales, customer grievance handling, HR aspects, everything being handled. But when it comes to the security, it is being given back within the organization to IT or to a CISO or to a CRO. That should not be the case. The first line of defense, they are all enablers. The first line of defense is line of business itself, which is very, very vital. The second line of defense is where the CISO, that is Chief Information Security Officer, who is in turn reporting to the CRO, comes into the play. The third line of defense is nothing but internal audit. Internal audit, how they expect to give, first of all, go back to second line of defense, like how we talked about the first line of defense expected to be giving assurance on the basic compliance measure, including cybersecurity aspects. Second line of defense, that is CISO and CRO coupled together, expected to work with first line to ensure that first line is really working effectively, that is the line of business working effectively.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think a very valuable tips we have heard so far from JPM, who has been advising RBI on the cybersecurity resilience. So it's a foremost thought leader in the space, and his governance and the security audits are being looked upon by the industry veterans as well, and a great number of customers in the Indian banking industry. So very valuable input she has brought in. And it reflects also on what at Conneqt Digital we do when we talk about transforming, managing, and governing the cybersecurity services for our banking customers, the NBFCs and the insurance customers in India context. And with our shared services and our centers for providing, protecting, and responding to the threats effectively with our command centers in Bangalore and across India, we are able to deliver this to our customers, and we'll be very happy to have a conversation with anyone interested in the participants today on how we do this and how we can review the current set of technologies being implemented and the vulnerability in some of the solutions we have today with our customers. So it's, as Mr. JPM pointed out, it's an ongoing process. It has to be governed effectively. That means a right strategy and the right solution and an ongoing governance of those, right? And we are also working closely with many of the partners. He talked about many of the solutions. One of the partners we work very closely is on the governance, risk, and compliance with ServiceNow. We have a solution that we work together with ServiceNow for our customers, particularly in the banking industry. And we'll be very happy to engage in a conversation with the customers on this as well. So very insightful session. I hope all of you found it relevant and useful and very practical. And looking forward to having conversations with the interested participants subsequently as well. And really appreciate all of you for spending time with us, and a very fruitful discussion. And thanks, JPM, for this.